Today's story is not for the faint in heart and in mind. Maybe you should watch my other videos on this channel. However, today you will need to be strong enough to watch and listen. Before you watch this storyline, you will need to remove the cloak of your country. At least for today, you will need to assume that you are neither from country A or country B. So you are neither a Nigerian or a Ghanaian. So you will have to be a spectator just for today. This will help you process things from the neutral point of view and in maturity. If your brother should come to you with injury, complaining that someone hurt him, beat him up, and injured him, of course you will believe him, right? After all, he told you his own narrative. And again, you saw his injury. However, his opponent might have been in the hospital fighting for his life. You see, by the time you listen to both sides of the story, it will make things clearer and you will be able to analyze things from both points of view. What happened in 1983 in Nigeria between Nigerians and Ghanaians is still something that changed the mindset of a lot of Ghanaians. And I know that those who were born then are already 40 years old. For you to heal, you will need to face your frog, kiss your frog, and again eat your frog. Only then shall healing commence. Now, what happened in 1983 was just the continuation of a storyline that happened years before. Something happened in 1969, and it happened in Ghana. Well, hold on a little bit. Ghana's 1969 issue was actually the last straw. However, something began in 1957. Before we go to 1957, let me take you back to 1920. Back in Nigeria before 1914, there were three major nations. They were pulled together. One from the north, two from the south. Now, the Niger coastline and the Niger Delta, they were merged together as the Southern Protectorate, while the one from the north, they named the Northern Protectorate. So it was easier for them to govern the north and the south. And so in 1914, Lord Lugard saw the need to merge the two protectorates together, and they became Nigeria, with the headquarters in Lagos. The colonial masters established the indirect rule system. They ensured that there was no unity between the north and the southern part of the Nigerian protectorate. The British adopted a divide and rule policy. They instigated each region against another. They planted spies, talebearers, instigators, and then served as peacemakers. Now let's fast forward to 1920s. Nigerians who went to the Gold Coast were warmly welcomed by their Ghanaian brothers. Now, when these people went back to their different regions, do not forget that it wasn't only Nigerians that came. And so, Nigerians started migrating to those parts. Remember that the colonial masters actually used indirect rule system. And so, they allowed minor political affiliations and political parties so that they will be able to rule through those people. So Nigerians joined other blacks in Ghana with Ghanaians to push for Pan-Africanism. These Nigerians that migrated from Nigeria, especially the Yorubas, due to the close proximity of the country. Yorubas constituted 80% of the Nigerian immigrants. Nigerians in Ghana contributed to the spread of Islam and Christianity. Remember, I said contributed, meaning that they helped spread Christianity, and the wealthy Yoruba merchants who were Muslims also helped the Muslims in Ghana to spread Islam. In 1920, the Nigerian traders brought Baptist Church from Nigeria to Gold Coast, and the first Baptist church in Ghana started in Kumasi in 1927, while other branches were also opened in both the rural and urban areas in Ghana. 21 years later, they formed an association in Ghana that represents Ghana for conventions in Nigeria and in other parts of the world. The Islamic society called Nuruddin was also established by Nigerians in Ghana. In the early 20th century, both Nigerians and Ghanaians were mutual benefactors, both socially and economically. Nigerian migrants immensely contributed to the economic development and the transformation of the rural and the urban areas in Ghana. Nigerians worked in the cocoa farms in Ghana and helped in the mining of gold as laborers. The whites were in charge of the cocoa, where they do loot the produce and give the laborers stipend. Some of the Ghanaian chiefs were aware and they were accomplices. Hence, they turned a blind eye. Laborers or farmers in the cocoa farms weren't the only things Nigerians were doing. Some were petty traders, some were doing household work, some entered the civil service sector, some were in the household sector, some were in the construction companies, and a lot of things were offered to them and they did them, both from menial jobs to civil service jobs. One of the clashes was in the cocoa crisis, when the colonial masters instigated against Nigerians and other foreigners as they considered them threats to their mission. Now, what happened? At that time, the colonial masters were actually looting a lot of cocoa, and there were also traditional chiefs that aided them. In turn, these traditional chiefs also were given part of the looted cocoa. And the laborers, who are Nigerians and other African nationals, we are not happy about it. When they demanded for their rights upon the stipend that is being paid to them, they were met with series of backlash. Threatening to expose what was going on, there was an instigation both from some traditional chiefs and from the colonial people to instigate against them. And in the end, it was seen that they, the Nigerians and other African nationals, were insubordinate and again proving stubborn. In 1935, the traditional rulers in a meeting in Ghana urged the colonial masters to ensure that troublemakers, by troublemakers they meant the Nigerians and other African nationals, were kept out of Achim Abuakwa, which is in the eastern region of Ghana. All migrants from Nigeria and other African countries should be made amenable to the customary laws of the land in which they reside. Any act of insubordination on the parts of the strangers will attract deportation. In Ghana then, cocoa demand was very high, and Ghana was seen as a go-to place to purchase cocoa. Many Nigerians were in Ghana as at early 1930s. In fact, Nigerians in Ghana as at that time were more than 50,000. Nigerians were very successful in Ghana, ranging from their petty trade business through their housework. All of them struggled to make ends meet, and they were successful. Later on, they started buying shops, and they owned 1/3 of shops in Tamale. They also bought lands and constructed shops. Nigerian men and women were so hardworking that they controlled businesses in Kumasi Central Markets. And again, their population grew in Ghana. This led to competition that started between Nigerians and the indigenes or the locals in Ghana, who felt intimidated and displaced in their nation. Most of them felt dominated by foreigners. Also, many Ghanaian women were attracted to Nigerian men due to their hustling spirits and got married to them. Some Ghanaian men also found out that Nigerian women are so industrious, and they decided to settle down with them. At that time, the locals labeled Nigerians especially as business gurus. Some complained that Nigerians will not work for you for a long time. All they wanted is to raise a capital to start a business. And when they do so, before you know it, they will be prosperous. Some labeled Nigerians as being aggressive. Some labeled them as being arrogant and corny. Some labeled them as stingy. And they also say that Nigerians only like to help themselves, that they like to help only one another, and they do not extend helping hands to them as Ghanaians. Some also complained that Nigerians only love to mingle amongst themselves and that they did not trust Ghanaians at all, and that made some Ghanaians angry. Meanwhile, there are some Ghanaians who are still very close friends with Nigerians, and they did not see anything wrong with what Nigerians were doing. However, opinion varied. At that point, it was just a normal tag and stereotype, and life continued. Later on, Nigerians were accused of being flamboyant, extravagant, and always flaunting their wealth. As Nigerians started buying lands and building houses in Ghana in 1950s. So Ghanaians became curious of how Nigerians can be so successful within few years of starting businesses with little or no cash. Some Nigerians financed politicians, and some belonged to the power class in Ghana. Some group of Ghanaians complained that Nigerians are oppressing them in business. As Nigerians allowed people to bargain in business, Nigerians selling with smaller gain attracted more indigenous customers who are Ghanaians than the local traders. In 1953, Ghanaian indigenes formed a national union, and they protested and sought for the protection of Ghana's own businesses, of which they are opposing and pushing for the closure of foreign businesses. At that point, Nigerians in Ghana were stopped from petty trading via an order. Politics played a major role in this. In Gold Coast, that is the present-day Ghana, there were three parties that existed then. They were the CPP, that is Convention People's Party by Kwame Nkrumah, MAP, the Muslim Association Party, that was handled by Nigerian Yoruba Muslim merchants as well as Ghanaian Muslims. There was NLM, National Liberation Movement, controlled by Dr. Kofi Busia. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was seen by the Muslim group in Ghana as not being a true Pan-Africanist, as he resented the building of Islamic schools in Ghana, and the Muslims condemned him for not being liberal with religion. They also told him that if he really is a true Pan-Africanist, that he should allow freedom of religion. Also, the traditional rulers also opposed his movement of unity, as they felt threatened by his speech of making and as well abolishing some traditional rights and entitlements to foster unity amongst Africans and ensure equality.
But religious leaders are entitled to state when an organization is becoming anti-religious or is going against their religious principles.
And do you
I think that is what Bishop Patterson has done. I know the man very well, and if any government expels a man like that, well, that government really should begin to think seriously about where it's heading. Thinking that it was an unwise step of the Ghanaian government. We hold the view that religious leaders should condemn practices that they consider to be irreligious.
MAP, the Muslim Association Party, strongly and openly opposed him and formed an alliance with NLM, the National Liberation Movement. Meanwhile, many Christians in Ghana, including Nigerians and Ghanaians, supported CPP of Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah made his close allies to be few Ghanaians and Nigerians, especially the wealthy and eloquent ones, in order to push his political agenda and gain support from Nigerians in Ghana, as well as attract support from Nigeria whenever the need arises. In 1954, there was a local government election. MAP, being the Muslim Association Party, presented some candidates that represented their wards, and 80% won, including one Nigerian. Even at the national level, Nigerians also contested. This shows the Pan-Africanism in Ghana. Many Nigerians, especially from Yoruba, opposed Kwame Nkrumah's religious intolerance. They didn't support him. Also, it was noted that Dr. Busia of NLM had a campaign manager who was a Nigerian. And gradually, the alliance of NLM and MAP became a national story. NLM and MAP formed an alliance, and they were opposing CPP of Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah, in a power move in 1957, brought out the Citizenship Act, of which the Ghanaian citizens applauded. The Citizenship Act was meant for both migrants and indigents to register their citizenship. Nigerians supported and sponsored some Ghanaian clubs. In 1957, Ghana had her independence. And after the independence, there was this mentality of deportation, which the colonial masters implanted in so many African elites, whereby they feel that you need to deport people in order to manage your economy. It was a way of brainwashing Africans by using the German and Jewish instigation policies during the Second World War, therefore planting the seed of destruction amongst Africans, just to ensure that Pan-Africanism didn't stand. In that same 1957, there was a deportation act that was released. The Deportation Act made so many Ghanaians happy as they persuaded governments to deport all aliens. And that was when they established Aliens Acts. And they started calling foreigners in Ghana, Nigerians and other foreign nationals, aliens. Kwame Nkrumah insisted that the deportation of aliens was restricted only to his political opponents, and he strongly rejected the move or agitation for expulsion of aliens by Ghanaians. He exerted his points from the perspective of Pan-Africanism and insisted that no nation is an island and nations need each other for economic growth and stability. The Deportation Act of 1957 was solely meant to be used to dislodge MAP members, of whom greater numbers were seen as Nigerians. Kwame Nkrumah deported Yoruba and Hausa heavy merchants back to Nigeria because they opposed him. He deported Amadou Baba back to Kano. He deported Alofa Ladan, who was the campaign manager of Dr. Busia. He deported Faleye Samuel back to Nigeria. On getting to know the plans of Kwame Nkrumah to deport, jail, destabilize political opponents, some Nigerian politicians in the opposition group ran back to Nigeria. Jailing and deportation was a political weapon that Kwame Nkrumah used then. And this didn't sit well with Nigerian political leaders. The remaining members of MAP and NLM formed a new party called the United Party, led by Dr. Busia, a majority of his members being Nigerians and Ghanaians. CPP of Kwame Nkrumah labeled MAP leaders as troublemakers for opposing him. Many strong United Party supporters from Nigeria like Alhaji Raji Bakari was sent on exile. At this point, the politicians in Nigeria saw him as a self-centered politician who hides behind Pan-Africanism to achieve his personal goal of lording himself over other countries and becoming the United African leader.
Threats by intimidation, by imprisonment, by deportation. Chiefs who do not support them are destooled, that is, deprived of their office. Threats go out. The civil servants who are known not to be supporting the government will not have their promotion. There are all kinds of insidious ways being used to let people see that it does not pay to belong to an opposition and that one gets everything one wants by belonging to the government party.
But Dr. Nkrumah has argued that a new country needs strong government.
I do not think so. It depends on what you are aiming at. It needs strong government. If you are aiming at establishing a dictatorship, then of course you begin. If you are aiming at establishing a democracy, you start by respecting the rights of the people, not by taking them away.
Would you go so far as to say that Ghana is straying towards fascism?
I have no doubt it is. And
meanwhile, many Nigerians in Ghana supported Kwame Nkrumah. As some Yoruba elites were singled out and deported, there was an increasing animosity by some Ghanaians towards Nigerians. Those deported were only deported because their activities in politics wasn't to national interest, as stated by the political elites in Ghana, that they did not steal.
People were afraid to speak their minds. You were spied on. Anything you said against Nkrumah could be written down and they'd come and arrest you. If they arrested you, they didn't ask you about what you'd said. They just sent you to prison. If you were there and you died, you died.
At that time, the term alien became a household name. In 1966, there was a coup and Dr. Busia and LM toppled the Kwame Nkrumah's government. Despite the political issues going on in Ghana and some agitation and political deportation, Ghana was still seen as a neutral ground to settle matters. Do you remember that there was a coup in Nigeria in 1966 that brought this Major General Yakubu Gowon into power? So he felt the need for settlement in order to save Nigeria, because at that time there was already an oil discovery at Oloibiri. However, pipeline was still being laid. The eastern region sent General Odumegu Ojukwu, and then the other regions in Nigeria sent their generals in Nigeria and then went to Aburi in Ghana as a neutral ground for settlement. However, the interpretation of the verdict, which should be the solution, was misinterpreted by all the parties, which tried to interpret what they understood differently to suit them. Then 30th May 1967, Ojukwu declared the secession of the three states of the eastern region under the name of the Republic of Biafra, which the federal government interpreted as an act of rebellion. This led to fights, and within 3 weeks, it reached a point of full-blown civil war.
London and Paris, the situation in Biafra, and what is the view of your government on the situation there?
I think I will answer the second part. The view of my government
with regard to Biafra is that the longer the war continues, the worse it is, not only for those who are concerned, but for all of us in Africa. And we want to do our best to bring the two sides round the table to discuss what it is for them alone to discuss, how they will live together in the future. We are prepared to offer mediation.
Have you already done so, sir?
We have already taken steps, yes.
And what was the answer from the other side, if I may ask?
The negotiations are still going on, and I'd rather not make public at present anything that has...
Back in Ghana, on the 29th of August 1969, there was an election, and Dr. Busia Kofi became the Prime Minister of Ghana. He came into power and immediately everything changed. The tolerance dropped. Unexpectedly, he immediately antagonized the Nigerian and the foreign supporters of African descent. For every slightest argument or stubbornness or argument with a local, foreigners were thrown into prison. They were called criminals who came to Ghana with nothing, yet stole Ghana's resources, customers, women, and business. The prison of Ghana was filled with Nigerians and very few other African nationals whom were thrown into prison because of slightest resistance or arguments. There was an accusation that aliens did not vote for United Party. However, it was the opposite, as they were openly seen supported United Party financially and physically. Yet they were surprised. Some Ghanaians expressed their displeasure towards the antagonism of Nigerians. This led to a widespread rumor that every alien in Ghana will go to jail for not voting for Dr. Busia. There was a phrase that was used, Wobiko, meaning you will leave, you will go. This brought about agitation from political leaders in other countries and open molestations of Nigerians and other foreign nationals began. Some Nigerians were able to run back home. The information spread mostly in the north and southwestern Nigerians. Nigerian government, through the Secretary of External Affairs, Dr. Arikpo, warned Ghana to stop molesting Nigerians. At that, there was an executive order and announcement via the radio that Ghanaians should stop molesting Nigerians. However, it did not stop. Actually, it got worse and nothing was done. Nigerians were described as undesirable elements, undesirable aliens, criminals who came to steal Ghana's natural resources. Nigerians were openly made to know that if they wish to still stay in Ghana, that their children must stop schooling, that they should resign from their government job, although majority had already been sacked, and that they should stop doing businesses like trading. They should only work as laborers, house or domestic workers, and farmers, just like other foreign nationals from other African countries. The molestation, the name calling, what we call the undesirable elements, alien, criminals, was the order of the day. Ghanaians started harassing, breaking and looting Nigerian shops, looting their properties in their very presence, pouring sand in their trading items. It became unbearable, and the animosity increased when Ghanaians learned of the civil war that had broken out in Nigeria. Nigeria wasn't a place to be at that moment, and so the aliens in Ghana who are Nigerians had no choice but to endure. Ghanaians openly fought each other in the presence of Nigerians, or who will take possessions of their looted properties. One of the elderly victims narrated that what they experienced in Ghana should never be experienced even by their enemy. The one set of people who adored and liked them became so evil and haunted them like animals in Ghana. Do remember that this molestation was carried out by 2/3 of Ghanaians. There were Ghanaians who really felt less concerned. They neither abused Nigerians nor protected them. However, there were half of the 1/3 who felt bad for Nigerians, and they tried their best to defend the foreigners, but obviously outnumbered. Some Ghanaians tried their best to fight off their people who looted Nigerian properties, as Nigerians couldn't fight off or attack the citizens, or they will risk being thrown into jail. On the 18th of November 1969, a new immigration law was announced by the government of Dr. Kofi Busia. All aliens were required to have their permits. He stated that it has come to the notice of the government that several aliens, both Africans and non-Africans in Ghana, do not possess the requisite resident permit in conformity with the laws of Ghana. There are others too who are engaging in business of all kinds, contrary to the term of their visiting permits. The government has accordingly directed that all aliens in the first category, that is those without resident permit, should leave Ghana within 14 days. That is not later than December 2nd, 1969. Those in the second category should obey strictly the terms of their entry permits, and if these have expired, they should leave Ghana immediately. The Ministry of Interior has been directed to comb the country thoroughly for defaulting aliens, and aliens arrested for contravening these orders will be dealt with according to the law. This announcement was sudden, and many Nigerians in Ghana went to get their permits. However, they were denied. The encombing of the country and mass deportation started. Those who went to get their permits were denied, but only white foreigners or non-Africans were allowed to get permits. They stayed in Ghana and they were untouched. There were special cases of those Ghanaians who married Nigerians, and those whose parents were aliens but was born in Ghana and can't trace their roots to their country, after being considered whether they merited it or not. No matter what, every foreigner faced brutality in Ghana, except white foreigners and the non-Africans. Some Nigerians were forced to sell their buildings and all their properties for a peanut amount that can't even buy food for them for 1 week. Since their money was looted, many of them were left stranded. Nigerian Association in Ghana wrote a petition to the government of Ghana to extend the date of the exit in order for them to get their salary, since salary will be paid first week of the next month. Also to enable them plan for their family on how they will relocate. But Ghana government refused. Government issued an executive order for Nigerians not to go with their savings in Ghana. The Bank of Ghana, which has many savings of Nigerians, rejected the plea of Nigerians, and the very wealthy amongst them were given peanuts, enough for them to just travel back to Nigeria, and the rest were given nothing. Those that have money at home, it was either stolen or they were molested and it was taken from them. Many Nigerians were bundled and deported with nothing on their way to the church or market. Several banks denied them access to withdraw their money. The population of many aliens exiting the country was huge, as they were being forced by the military. This led to stampede. An order was released that no Ghanaian should buy any house owned by a Nigerian, even if it is for a ridiculously low amount of money. There were Nigerians who, in their bitterness and frustration, decided to set their buildings ablaze. Nigerians left with nothing except few clothes. Some good Ghanaians were bitter at the evil being meted out against a group of people who gave stability to the Ghana economy. Some of them secretly stuffed money, water, and food items in the bags of Nigerians. There were lorries that ridiculously overcharged Nigerians. They ridiculously hiked the price of transportation, knowing fully well that Nigerians will not be able to pay as they do not have enough on them. Except a few good Ghanaians who tried their best to support Nigerians, though they were very few and often they faced backlash and fights. Some of them were beaten by some thugs and angry mobs. Wobiko, 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 aliens, Wobiko, undesirable elements, you shall go. That was the chant on the streets of Ghana, December 1969. Many Nigerians had nothing on them, so they had to trek from Ghana to Togo border. Some turned to beggars on the roadsides of Togo. These were once wealthy merchants. For days they journeyed. Many died on the road due to exhaustion and hunger. Children died. Many children died on the road. After trekking for several days, some arrived Benin Republic, but there was a political tussle in Benin Republic precisely on the 25th of December. And so, many refugees became stranded along the Benin. Some were also arrested as they were forced to pay road tax. If not for the intervention of the Nigerian Christian Council, they came, intervened, and they helped to bring back Nigerians to Nigeria. When these deportees entered Nigeria, some faced rejection because it was during war. Some met empty homes as their people had run out of their homes. Some met their family members who welcomed them back into the society. There was a saying that Nigerians rich in Ghana returned only with their movable items, that is their clothes and their leg. And it was an experience for every Nigerian then. And they were telling Nigerians, do not ever forget your home, because no matter what, one day you shall return back home.